Hey, welcome to the GFCN online community, where we're taking a little bit of the online world and reserving it as a place for you to connect to God and connect to your neighbor. It's so great to see you again. Today, you're watching the third episode of our happiness series, and in this episode, you'll look at how seriousness might hinder faith and how humor can help us live more joyfully. We invite you to journey along by joining us in person on Sundays, by liking, subscribing, and following our social channels, or by partnering with us through giving. Over the next 8 weeks, you can listen along, accept our challenges, and start to find more joy in your life. If you've missed our first 2 episodes, check them out in the links down below. We challenged you to change your perspective and to practice humility. And we're keeping track of our happiness each week by asking these 2 questions. How happy are you with your life right now? And how happy are you with your life overall? We answer these questions with a number scale, with 0 being not happy at all and 10 being as happy as you could possibly be. And if you take the pursuit of happiness seriously, I'd invite you to consider keeping a journal of your happiness levels as we go through this series on happiness interventions. Reflect as your happiness goes up or down and keep that in your journal as well. In my circles growing up, I had learned that holiness was synonymous to seriousness. I'm not sure anyone intentionally wanted to teach me that, but I picked it up along the way. And maybe you learned this too through subtle instructions like you mustn't run in the sanctuary, or you mustn't play in the sanctuary, or no coffee or food in church. And communion was taken quietly and somberly. In most churches that I went to growing up, everyone was quiet and serious during the preaching. Church and holiness were serious. As I grew up, wanting to be faithful, I learned to be serious. It became kind of a running joke among my friends about how serious of a person I was. Some kind people would say that I seemed mature, but they were still implying that I had a serious tone about me. And over time, this train of thought adapted, and I'm afraid that I began to take myself too seriously, as if I was more important than everyone else. I stopped laughing at myself and with others. And if I embarrassed myself, it was, in my mind, a mark against my faith, my seriousness, and my value. It has taken me too long to unlearn my thoughts about holiness and seriousness being synonymous. A quote that I came across some time ago by the Reformed theologian Karl Barth really began to shift my perspective. He said that laughter is the closest thing to the grace of God. And that just kind of struck me. Upon hearing it, I couldn't remember the last time I had laughed. So it made me start to question, does my seriousness actually have anything to do with my faith or personal holiness? Could it actually be harming my faith more than helping it? Because I discovered that when we take ourselves too seriously, we can increase our anxiety, begin to devalue those around us, and ultimately limit our joy. So we've been looking at a happiness intervention each week as a way to intervene in our unhappiness and move us towards greater joy. I want to talk about the happiness intervention of humor. Humor is apparently from the same Latin word as humility and humanity, humus meaning soil or earth. Humor adds to that joy that we can get from humility by bringing us to common ground. In today's world, it's probable that we all take ourselves a little too seriously. Culture teaches us that to have value, we have to be serious and busy and mature. But that's actually really boring and stressful, and so I've been told unattractive. There's a scripture from Proverbs that might be showing us the opposite of what the culture teaches us. The book of Proverbs is unlike some of the other scriptures, the ones filled with stories and the ones filled with laws. Instead, Proverbs is considered wisdom literature. Proverbs is made up of advice, insights, and thoughtful sayings. Proverbs 17:22 says, "A cheerful heart is a good medicine, but a downcast spirit dries up the bones." And I'd like to paraphrase this verse and say that laughter is a good medicine, but a serious spirit dries up the bones. It's true that laughter is good medicine. In this culture particularly, where we each are likely taking ourselves too seriously, I want to show you how to add humor to your life as a way to find joy. Add to your joy by intentionally making space for laughter in your life. Dr. Madan Kataria teaches about the value of laughter in our lives, but rather than waiting for something to make us laugh, he argues that we should laugh for no reason. And he encourages something that he calls laughter yoga that includes a forced laughter and a style of stretching. In 2013, a group of psychology students adapted this method for a group of retired elders. One group of the elders participated in regular laughing sessions, and another group was not included in these laughing workshops. After 6 months with ongoing surveys for both groups, the group that participated in the laughter workshops was measurably happier than the other group. Now, I'm not going to tell you to force yourself to laugh, but I will encourage you to intentionally make space for laughter in your life. This study, along with other studies, shows that intentional, regular acts of laughing shows an increase in our overall well-being and happiness. Basically, I'm saying make a point to laugh more. Add to your joy by learning to laugh at yourself. Not long ago, our church community did a study on the Enneagram personality types. And if you're unfamiliar with the Enneagram, it's basically 9 different personality types. Although there's some variation within each type. And each type might change a little depending on if that person or that personality is in a state of stress or is becoming healthier. For one personality type, I noticed that when they are at their healthiest, they will often make fun of themselves using self-deprecating humor. And there are studies that back this up, the positive relationship that some people have to self-deprecating humor. It's not universal though. Still, there is an application from self-deprecating humor that I think we can all benefit from. That is learning to laugh at yourself. When we laugh at ourselves, we're able to connect with others who might realize that we are all alike. We're all the same. We have the common ground. Finally, add to your joy by laughing to unite, not divide. Sarcasm comes from the Greek word sarkazon, meaning flesh cutting. Sometimes it feels like that's what we're trying to do with sarcasm, cut other people down. Not all sarcasm is so divisive, but this word's origin does bring up that issue that hangs around certain areas of humor. Sometimes humor is used poorly or in poor taste, and it's destructive. That type of humor won't actually help you be happier. Instead, I'd encourage you to laugh to unite instead of divide. His Holiness the Dalai Lama shares a story of using humor to diffuse a tense situation when he was invited to mediate in the Ireland Troubles. In this violent conflict across Northern Ireland, 2 sides had formed. One was called the Protestant side and the other was called the Catholic side. And at a meeting near the end of the conflict, and in an effort for reconciliation, the Dalai Lama was invited. At the start of the meeting, a member spoke up about how he had been taught that his actions against the Catholics were justified because Jesus was a Protestant and therefore on his side. Hearing this statement, the Dalai Lama erupted in laughter because he knew that Jesus was, of course, a Jew, not a Catholic or a Protestant. But he's said to have laughed so hard that he noticed the atmosphere changed, and the 2 sides seemed a little less tense towards each other. So I'd say laugh to unite, not divide. Finally, it's difficult to think theologically about laughter, But I will say that the people I've met who are the most Christ-like were also the ones who spent the most time laughing. If it is true what Karl Barth says, that laughter is the closest thing to the grace of God, then we should spend a lot more time laughing. So we want to challenge you to use humor this week to intervene in places of tension or unhappiness. Our challenge comes from Douglas Abrams' The Book of Joy. Here's the steps. Step 1, think of your own limitations, human faults, or weaknesses. Think of something about yourself that might be funny with a different perspective. What can you laugh at about yourself? When you can laugh at yourself, you'll find that you will let others feel closer to you and you will inspire them to accept even their own limitations and their own faults. Step 2, laugh at yourself. The next time you're in a situation where you're acting a funny way, say something in a funny way, or are somehow less than perfect. Chuckle at yourself and make a joke of it. Humor is one of the best ways to end conflict, especially when you're able to make fun of yourself or admit that you're overreacting or being silly. Third, laugh at life. The next time you're delayed or something doesn't go your way, try being amused by the situation rather than getting angry or outraged. Try to see the humor in your day-to-day activities. So that's our challenge for this upcoming week. Laugh more. We look forward to seeing you next week as we look at our next happiness intervention. As you go about this week, may the Lord bless you and keep you, and may the Lord's face shine upon you all the days of your life. Go in peace.